Hi, I'm Alan Parker. Welcome to Justice TV. I'm the president of the Justice Foundation, and we're so glad that you're watching this with us today. We believe we have a very important and timely message for America and the world about the chemical abortion pill that is being widely distributed in the United States and widely distributed in other countries. Today, it's the most common form of abortion. And our guest today is Abby Johnson. Abby Johnson wanted to help women and still does. And so she began as a volunteer working with Planned Parenthood. And then she worked her way up to where she was a manager of one of the facilities. And she herself had a chemical abortion pill. And so we are honored to represent her in the case that's currently before the United States Supreme Court as to whether or not the abortion pill should be allowed to be distributed in America at all, in one sense, because of a legal question. How could it possibly not be allowed at all in the United States, Nathan?
Hey, I'm Nathan Seltzer, Vice President Operations for the Justice Foundation and Texas Attorney. Lord willing, that they'll find the Comstock Act actually prohibits the distribution of abortion drugs via the U.S. mail or common carrier. That question is not currently before the court, but we're hoping that the court will broaden the question and be able to actually strike down the distribution of chemical abortion pills entirely. But at the very least, that they will have significant restrictions on the distribution of those pills to save as many lives and as many women from abortion as possible, Alan.
That's right. And we're honored to represent Abby Johnson. She wrote a book about her experience called Unplanned. And then there was a movie based on that book of the dramatic testimony. So, Abby, why do you think it's important for your testimony to be heard at the United States Supreme Court and throughout the world?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Alan and Nathan. And thank you for representing me in this really important case. You know, I think that the abortion process in general, I mean, any time that we are taking an innocent life, of course, that should not be allowed. But what's happening to women in particular with these pill abortions, chemical abortions, it is so particularly heinous. Women are walking into abortion facilities many times, and they're being told that taking these abortion pills are natural, that it is not going to be as painful for them, that it is, no different than having their monthly cycle. They are not being told about the physical ramifications, and they are certainly not being told about the emotional ramifications of medication abortion. And that is so deceitful. But what we are hearing from women, what I'm hearing from women is, these are, and what you guys I know are hearing, there are women that are having to actually, they're choosing to leave the apartments, the houses where they had their medication abortion, because their traumatic response to taking these medication abortion pills is so strong that they can't even walk back into the bathrooms where they delivered their babies in the toilet, because they can't look at that toilet ever again. They didn't know that a fully formed human baby was going to be floating there in the toilet. They didn't know. They weren't aware. They weren't told the truth. And this is devastating. And the reality is, there is never going to be, and I can say this with pretty 100% certainty, there is never going to be any sort of study from the APA, the American Psychological Association, or any sort of secular institute that actually studies the psychological ramifications of taking these drugs and seeing your child in a toilet and then making the decision to flush that toilet and flush your baby away.
Well, Abby, there's no scientific. How do you know that what they're saying is true about how traumatic it is and seeing the baby themselves? How do you know that's true?
Well, we're hearing from the women. We are hearing from them directly. They're calling our hotline. They're calling our Loveline hotline. They're calling us. They're weeping. We have women that have called us and have said, my baby is still in the toilet. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know if I bury it. I don't know if I take it out. We have women that are calling us. They're sending us pictures of their baby. And they're saying, what do I do with this baby? They didn't tell me. I want to bury it, but I don't know what to do. Can I bury it in my yard? What do I do?
That's actually the first time a woman who'd had an abortion pill called me and was sobbing and screaming, my God, they lied to me. This is a baby. I can see the arms and the legs. And she wanted to know if she could bury her baby in the backyard, which is generally illegal. We don't allow human remains to be buried in people's backyard. But that's actually sort of what happened to you in your experience that's dramatized in the movie Unplanned and put in our brief at the Supreme Court, that the pill was even more traumatic than a surgical abortion for you.
Yes, 100%. I was working at Planned Parenthood at this time. So, I had been the one telling women that this is natural, this is safer, it's no big deal. And so I believed those things because I had been saying those things because that's what Planned Parenthood had been telling me. And so I really believed those things to be true. Because here's the thing, Allan, like when a woman has a traumatic abortion experience, she's not going back to the abortion clinic that gave her those abortion pills, right? She's going to organizations like yours. She's going to the pregnancy center. She's not going back to the organization that actually traumatized her, right? So I didn't know that these things were happening. I didn't know that women were almost bleeding to death. I didn't know about the serious pain. I didn't know any of that. And so I was shocked to have clots pass out of my body that were the size of lemons. I was shocked to see my baby in the toilet. I was shocked that all of these things were happening to me. I was shocked that I was bleeding profusely for 8 weeks. And a lot of people will say, "What, Abby, why did you go back? Right? Why did you go back to the clinic then? They lied to you, obviously. Why'd you go back?" And that's a great question. I think the only answer I really have is by the time that I went back, I think there was this self-loathing taking place in my mind. And I think I just kind of felt like, well, this is what I deserve, right? I wanted an abortion and I got an abortion. And should abortion be easy? Probably not. Look at what I'm doing, right? This is what I deserve.
Yes. That's how people feel. That's why I'm saying that. It wasn't what you deserved, but I want to just say that we represent thousands of women who have had abortions. That's where we know how women feel. And we put over 4,000 testimonies in the Supreme Court case that reversed Roe. And almost all the women said they felt worthless. This is what I deserved. And so, how did that lead you eventually away from Planned Parenthood? Well, let me ask you this. You felt worthless, and some of them have said, I didn't feel I could ever be forgiven. How did you find forgiveness ever? How did you come out from that cloud of feeling so terribly undeserving?
Yeah. It was a process. I had to leave Planned Parenthood in order for that to happen. I did not find forgiveness while I was working in Planned Parenthood, of course. But once I left Planned Parenthood, that was my second abortion. So, and then I of course, had participated in thousands of abortions while I was at Planned Parenthood. So And it was hard. It was hard to understand how God could forgive someone like me. How could he forgive all of that sin? And I remember just thinking one day, that's just not possible. That it's not possible. There's no way God could do that. But then God really convicted me, and he helped me understand that that was really pride for me to believe that this God that created me, that is so big, right? How could I believe that this big, all knowing, all forgiving God could not forgive me of my sin? What a, how ridiculous, right? Of course he could forgive me. Of course. All I had to do was just lay down this sin at his feet. And so, but it did take practice. And I tell people it was kind of like a habit. I had to wake up every morning and I had to remind myself that I was deserving of God's forgiveness. And I could either choose in that day to live for him, and I could choose to live in that present, in that gift that he had given me, or I could choose to live in my past. And that's what Satan wanted. Satan wanted me to live in my past. That our past is Satan's playground, all the what ifs, right? That we can't change. But that's not what God wanted. He didn't want me to live in that bondage. He wanted me to live right now. And he wanted me to use my past testimony as for his glory. And so, eventually, as I kept waking up and I kept choosing him and I kept choosing to live in this gift that he had given me, eventually I didn't have to choose anymore. It just became so natural. I just wanted to live in his glory. I wanted to live in that light.
Well, that's a wonderful testimony, because God, abortion is not the unforgivable sin, though many women have told me they feel like it is the unforgivable sin. But Jesus Christ died on the cross to pay the penalty that that sin deserves. And instead of women trying to punish themselves, they say they need to do as you did and say, I surrender it to you. I give it to you. I confess that it's a sin and say, God, please forgive me for my sin. Forgive me, and then receive the forgiveness of Jesus Christ. And you pass out of death into eternal life once you confess that sin and ask God to forgive you, and then say, like you did, I want to follow you now. I want to live every day for you. Jesus said, if you confess me as Lord, which means boss, and you're saying, I want to live for you. And you've done that in your whole life. Since then, not your whole life from the beginning, but all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. All of us sin. So since you've gotten out of Planned Parenthood, and your book tells that, Unplanned, what are you working on today? What are y'all doing in your ministry?
Yeah. So, well, over 10 years ago, I started a ministry called And Then There Were None. And we help people who currently work in the abortion clinic. We help them leave the abortion industry. And our goal is to help them come into a saving relationship with Jesus Christ. That is the victory for us. Yes, we absolutely want to save babies from abortion, but really, the ultimate goal for us is to bring people into that saving knowledge of Christ. We want to make heaven crowded, right? And so we want that eternal change for people. And so that's what we're trying to do with And Then There Were None. And we are so blessed that God has opened that door for so many men and women. We have now helped almost 700 workers leave the industry and come into that salvation. And so it's been just such a beautiful gift and really just a miracle. People ask me all the time, what's it like to be on the phone with someone as they're walking out of that abortion clinic for the last time? And I tell people it's like witnessing a miracle. because it really is. They're laying down that burden, and they are telling the Lord, I want you to be the boss of my life. And you know, I have to tell you, I have messed up. I am not a good boss of my own life. I'm not a good supervisor of my own life. The Lord does a much better job. And so to watch him take over the lives of these men and women is really just such a blessing.
And that's an amazing number, 700 people who've come out of the abortion industry, as you have done. And most of them have kind of become some very strong witnesses for what the lies and deception of the abortion industry are, from people who once practiced it and sometimes believing that it's true. All of us have been deceived by the lies of the abortion industry. We've got just a minute or two left, a couple of minutes. What do you think are some of those lies of the abortion industry that they tell women?
So I think some of the biggest lies are that abortion is painless, bloodless, and it's sterile. Abortion is incredibly painful, both physically and emotionally. It is incredibly bloody. This is not a bloodless procedure because it's death. It's the killing of children. And it's a very gruesome, barbaric procedure. And it's not a sterile procedure. These abortions are taking place in some of the most filthy places in America. And it's endangering women and it's endangering their health. But I think the greatest lie, Allan and Nathan, is that abortion gives women freedom. The abortion industry is trying to sell freedom to women, but there is nothing about abortion that creates freedom. It enslaves women. It enslaves them to regret. And motherhood is really freedom, because women are supposed to be mothers. That's what God creates us to do. It's who we are as women. And so there is such freedom in choosing motherhood and in choosing your child's life over death.
I absolutely agree with you. I'm sure Nathan does too. He's got some wonderful children that I've been blessed with to see and have some time with. But also, if women doesn't want to choose to be a parent when she's pregnant, in America, there's a better alternative to abortion. The best is motherhood. And there are pregnancy centers, and this show could get you some resources. If you think you can't afford it, first of all, every state will pay all the medical bills for low-income women, the prenatal care, the vitamins, and the delivery and aftercare. That's already the law in all 50 states, and every state has a safe haven law under which a woman can be free of the burden of parenting without killing the child and hurting herself. It's called the safe haven law, and you can drop the baby off at a hospital or fire station or other designated spot within a certain time after birth, or walk out of the hospital and leave the baby behind. And you can be free of the child if you feel you're not ready or whatever. And I'm not saying that's the best solution, but it's better than killing your child by far. You don't have to pay anything for it, unlike abortion. It's available in every state, and you can give life to that child. And if you're not ready to be a mother, there are 1 to 2 million women every year waiting to adopt a newborn baby in America. So we call that the love, love, love solution. And we thank you for being on the program today. Thank you so very, very much for being on the program. And we just, again, thank you for all you're doing. I guess one last thing, I think you're also doing a documentary to be called Unthinkable. What's that about?
That's right. Yeah, we gathered over 30 former abortion workers together. And, a lot of times I left the industry and people go, well, that's just your experience. That was just your clinic. And so I said, okay, well, let's find out if that's true. So we gathered over 30 former abortion workers to see if, there are really these systemic issues in the abortion industry, or is what I experienced, just kind of a one-off. And so I think it's going to be very eye-opening for people, both people who are pro-life and people who support abortion. And so I hope people will go and see that documentary. It will be in theaters, and we're looking at a March or April premiere. So we'll let you know.
I hope so, because I've actually been interviewed for the film, but like all movies, I may end up on the cutting room floor. Who knows?
No. Your interview was great. You'll be in it.
Okay, good. There, I've got the producer's approval already. So we do represent thousands of women hurt by abortion, and we know how bad it is. It's one reason that I've written a book called Reversing Roe v. Wade, My Journey with Roe, Doe, and God. And I just believe that chapter 5, is just the testimonies of women who've had abortions, like our guest Abby today. And it's powerful testimony. God heals. I want you to think about going to the Justice Foundation website. There are abortion recovery resources available on that website for you. And Nathan, I'd like you to tell people about how they could become a monthly partner of the Justice Foundation and what we have available for them. Thank you.
Yeah, we're encouraging it right now. Anyone who becomes a recurring monthly donor of the Justice Foundation, any amount, that we're going to send you a free copy of Allan Parker's book, Reversing Roe v. Wade, My Journey with Roe, Doe, and God. And it's important, the proceeds from this book do not go to Allan Parker personally. All those proceeds are going straight to the Justice Foundation. And of course, donations to Justice Foundation are tax deductible. It's a 501c3. So please just pray. If the Lord is calling you to support our work and our ministry, just pray and do what God asks. And we just would invite you to join us. And we just thank Abby Johnson again for being here today. Thank you, Abby.
Thank you, Abby.